Hello, and welcome to the Manifestor Only podcast. Today, I have Krystal, a 1-3 emotional manifester. So excited to have you here today, Krystal. Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited this is Manifestor only.
Yes,
I love this idea.
thank you. How about you start us off by just introducing yourself to people in the way that feels the most natural today?
Yeah, so today I am, well, every day I'm a mom of two, and currently I live in Connecticut, so Northeast on the shoreline in Connecticut, and I have a business that sustains us, that actually the foundation of it is human design. So I love that I'm here today. But I also teach human design, and I'm a human design advisor, and I speak about human design. And yeah, human design is a huge part of my life. So I'm really excited to be talking with another human design nerd. And all of the human design nerds listening. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, indeed. I love my fellow nerds. It's such an interesting system. And I would love to hear, like, how did it enter your life? And do you have like a life before and after human design story?
Well, I around 18 years old found yoga, and I feel like that was kind of an entrance into like a more spiritual realm, because prior to that I was very fascinated with psychology. So like there's a lot of social workers and psychologists and therapists in my family and just on my fractal, I guess. And so I've always been fascinated with why people do what they do and say what they say. And when I found yoga, it like went under the surface of everything. I kind of started to understand like the energy and the spirituality of everything. And then I got pregnant at 27 and had my son. And when he was a toddler, I was just very focused on, well, since I was pregnant with him, I was so focused on just becoming like the best version of myself. Like I just wanted to be the best person I could be for my kid. And so I was super into all of the things, all of the personal development and growth and all of that. I really went down the rabbit hole, of course. And I was listening to, I don't know if you know Lacey Phillips, To Be Magnetic.
No, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, so she does like manifestation work. And I was doing her work at the time. And this was about 6 years ago. And I was listening to this podcast about human design. Jenna Zoe, she was on there talking about human design. And by the end of it, I was just like crying and shaking. Like I was having this weird visceral reaction to this thing I had never heard of before. And I felt inside like something is shifting with me. And that day I ordered the definitive book of human design and read it cover to cover and just like immediately started experimenting with it, immediately started telling everybody about it, immediately started experimenting about it in my parenting. I started sharing about it on social media because I was already doing some work on social media. And so it just, as in true 1-3 fashion, I really stumbled on it and it really changed the trajectory of my life. And I really dove down so deep into the whole of it, and the bridge to my split is gate 48, right? So real deep with it. And yeah, it's just bled into every area of my life. And I've made some really radical life decisions that I never thought that I would make. And not to say that human design was the reason for it, because I've always made huge radical changes in my life that I never could have expected. When I look back on human design, the way that I operate isn't so different. It's just that I operate with a lot more awareness now and with a lot more maturity, and perspective. So that, I guess, is how human design has helped me a whole bunch, but also my business, which I never meant to become an entrepreneur. I never meant to do any of what I'm doing. Not really. So it's been a blessing in that respect for sure, in every respect. But yeah, it's given me a lot of gifts. That's for sure.
Mm. Looking at your chart while you're speaking, I'm like, well, you're, a 1-3. investigator, trial and error. You're also on the cross of explanation, looking for those answers, the principles, the insights, the splitting through all of the shit and being able to explain something that you've understood. But then you also have that transmitter, energy going on, which a lot of people like to talk about as the entrepreneurial kind of energy of this over, you know, spleen to ego, as in survival to will. And it just makes sense to me while you're speaking that, like, yeah, this is your trajectory. This is where you ended up. I think that's just so beautiful. And I would love to hear more about your entrepreneurial journey. I mean, you kind of dipped into it where I was like, that was not intentional. That just kind of happened. What is that journey? What has that journey looked like, and what does it look like today? Because you also are a mother of two now, not just a
Yeah.
toddler. And what are their ages, if I may ask?
4 and 8.
Wow.
Yeah, they're little. Yeah. Yeah. So since I'm a 1-3 and I've just been accumulating experiences, it's like I can look back and see, even as a kid, that I wanted different things and, operated in a different kind of way. And when I was 14, I started working as a personal assistant for an entrepreneur who ran their family business out of their home.
Mm.
And so I worked for her for 7 years. And looking back, I'm like, I would guess, is probably a projector. Like we would take naps at least twice a week. And like we did a lot of napping. There was no real generating of any kind of physical energy going on. But I think that was my first taste. And that was my first job. And it was for a projector entrepreneur. So I was just, all of my experiences were kind of priming me for, or just, I was, I guess, just following that spleen into these environments that were actually correct for me. And fun fact, I was a dancer, like a pretty serious dancer, since age 5. And then I, was thinking about maybe going for it and I didn't. And so all of these things were kind of leading up to, like, I realized that I was never going to have a 9 to 5 job. I was never going to work in an office. I never even thought about it. It never even actually like entered my awareness that was something that I might do. Never. It was never a consideration for me. Even when I did go to college and I was studying psychology and I was doing a lot of research and I was like, no, I want to be just doing the research on my own schedule. I don't want to be teaching the classes and whatever. So it's like, I knew that I was going to have that freedom. And it's so funny because at the time that I got pregnant accidentally, I was applying for graduate school, but I was also applying for management positions for restaurant groups, which would have been an office job.
Mhm.
And nothing was happening, of course, nothing. I wasn't getting any of these jobs, even though I was like super overqualified. And I accidentally got pregnant. And, I have the gate of crisis, of course, as well. And so at that time, I was like, well, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. Like again, there was nothing in me that considered that it would be any other way. Like I'm going to be here for my child. So I need to find a way to make my own money so that I'm not financially completely dependent on another human because I need my own security. I need my own foundation, right? So I started doing the MLM thing. I was already very into fitness and all of that. So I was doing fitness and wellness coaching and all the products and all of that. And again, like nothing was really happening. I would get some traction and then I would lose it. And I would get some traction and then I would lose it. Of course, because I'm doing the things and doing the things and doing the things until I would burn out completely. Right. So I'm like, okay. And I was just like so angry when I was doing it because I had these like uplines or whatever they're called. I don't remember what they're called, but the people who are like above you in that weird hierarchy. breathing down my neck about, well, you got to hit these points and whatever. And like, I was just like so angry and so tired. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this course, right? I didn't even know what courses were, but I was like, I'm going to make this course for these, at that point, I had a toddler. I was teaching baby wearing dance classes for free at this park. I had built this like adorable community doing that. It was so fun because again, I've always just created what I wanted because it never existed, right? So I created this beautiful little community and all these moms are looking to me for help, because I have energy and I'm fit and I have goals and I've got all this stuff going. So and we all were helping each other, but I was the one who, of course, initiated this course. And it was called Fully Aligned. And it was a 4-week self-care course for women. And I like remember at that time, I was also teaching adult dance classes at night. And I remember staying super late at the studio one night and filming all of the videos for this course. And like there was yoga, there was meditation. I mean, it was basically what I'm doing it all now, but human design was not yet part of the equation. But right after I launched that course to the world is when I found human design. So it was like being a mother was the whole reason why I ever started doing any of this anyway. It's the whole reason why. And the whole reason why I wanted to get better for myself was to be a better person for my kids. So I started a business in order to do that. And I'm helping other women to do that too. Right. And so motherhood is the whole point. Like my kids are the whole point. So of course it's evolved and it's changed a whole lot. I don't know if you even know this, but I'm a full-time single mom of 2. So their father's not like, they don't see him very often. He lives far away. And so it's literally just me. Everything is on me. I have an undefined root. I have an undefined head. The pressure has been, I understand why a lot of people just quit. I get why people quit. I get why they can't hack it. Not that they can't, but I get why they don't want to. I get why people throw in the towel and go get a quote stable, quote, reliable, which like I have my own thoughts about, job security, but I understand why people do that. I had people telling me in the last year and a half that it was okay if I had to quit my business and go get a job. Can't even say it. It was okay if I was going to have to, move out of my beautiful house by the water and move in with my dad. It was okay if I was going to have to pull my kids from private school. It was okay if I was, because, you just got to heal and it's okay. It's okay. I'm like, it is absolutely not okay. It's not okay. Why on earth? Why on earth would I settle? So now life as an entrepreneur looks like me. It's like life has just forced me to be a manifestor because I've seen the writing on the wall. Me finding human design at the time that I found it was like, listen, lady, take a look. All right. What are you doing? Come on. Right. And it's been that time and time and time again. But of course, it's like getting to the crisis mode of things before I'll actually do what needs to be done. But now it looks like, first of all, creating an ecosystem where I can be a mom and also do things like this, where I just have to tell people, this is what my schedule is. This is when I can do things. This is how much time I can do it for. And we may have interruptions and like, that's just what it is, It also looks like being unapologetic about getting whatever support that I need and fully developing my faith and my own self-trust that everything that I could possibly need in order to be who I am truly and live the mission and the calling that's on my heart is available and will always be available. So if I feel that I need support with, you know, cutting my lawn or hiring a personal assistant or whatever, regardless of what the matrix says about whether I'm qualified enough to get that level of support, is not my business, right? So life has just been providing me with all of these situations that have, it's basically do or die. Either you are going to own your power and get what you need, speak your vision into existence and receive it. That's literally all it is, being a manifester. So either you're going to do that or you're going to continue to be a victim and watch your life continue to crumble around you, pretty much, or feel like life is crumbling around you, at least. Right? So what motherhood and what having a business in addition to being a mother has done for me is help me to understand what being a manifester is, help me to understand what my role is and what it absolutely is not, you know? And I think that's where a lot of manifestors get tripped up. It's like, no, you really are that powerful. No, really, whatever you need is available to you and will manifest as soon as you decide and you release the resistance. No, really, you're not meant to grind. No, really, your default mode is rest, peace. No, really, everything is okay. And if you don't feel like doing it, you can hire someone else to do it for you. Period. The end. No guilt. And I think that a lot of manifestors are just scared of that, you know? And we have all these wounds and beliefs that are just like clouding our vision. But if we could just clear that and see, it's just like, no, you're here to have what you want. That's what you're here for, you know? So this is what I want. It's just, I'm refining now.
Ah, I have chills. This is so good. And there's no doubt that I would say most manifestors are conditioned to not actually understand the power they have. I mean, I'm still in that process of slowly but surely getting to the place of really understanding, oh shit, I can actually do the shit that people have told me that I shouldn't, right? Like that whole fear of having to go out and get a job or have someone who is like my boss again. Like, come on, no, that's never going to happen. And with that said, I'm not saying that just because you're a manifestor, you shouldn't have a boss. You might have it in you to do that. I don't, right? And I think it's so beautiful the way you are really just bringing that power to Instagram, to your followers, and really showing us that it's possible. It's possible to be a manifestor. It's possible to juggle the entrepreneurship and the parenting by what you said, getting the fucking support you need. And that's asking for help, which I also think there's some conditioning around is the whole asking for help part. At least it is for me.
It's so, listen, I am not saying that any of this is easy. And that's what I mean. I understand. I understand why manifestors don't step into their power. I get it. I understand. I mean, like there are days where I would rather hide from it too, to be honest with you. I understand why, like I just get it. It's just I get why people don't do it. I get why people quit. And also I just don't have it in me. And I guess that's a little bit of what human design has done for me too. It's like that whole deconditioning process. You know, I'm almost to, let's see, it's been almost 6 years for me. So I just feel like I'm at this point where I'm not willing to betray myself anymore. I've done it. I'm capable of it. But like, that's the thing. If both things are hard, it's like that stupid quote, choose your hard.
Mhm.
Like I would rather choose the hard that has me being in my power than choose the hard where I have none, you know? And like, yes, I feel like this is the part where I have to acknowledge privilege, you know? And I think, again, privilege is it is a subjective thing. Like it really, it just is. It is. Like you can't know how much privilege a person has or doesn't have. Of course, you can just look at them and know that in our system, in our society, of course, like you got a leg up. I'm a pretty white girl from the suburbs. Let's be real. I live in Connecticut, like my family's middle class. So, yeah. Does that mean I haven't struggled? No, but yes, of course, I have privilege. And so I think even with that though, like even when you feel like you have no privilege and like the world is completely against you and you have nothing, still you can find your power, you know?
Yeah.
It really is all a lie. It's all a construct. It's all a lie. Like you can find your power. It's underneath all of that stuff, you know? So I don't even remember why we started talking or I started talking about this, but
I don't know either, but it was perfect.
yeah.
Of course, I think I really appreciate you pointing out the privilege part of this because, my, we both have that 22-47 combo, which is just delicious. And 47.6 is my earth. And so it always goes to, futility. It's not worth it, all that shit. And I've gotten really mm, deeply in love with that part of myself now. I really have come to love my mind and understand that, hey, you're just trying to watch out for me. And so I could see myself really going into, well, not everybody can hire someone to do this or get a personal assistant or, pay for help.
I want to speak to that.
Yes, please.
I want to speak to that because that's the thing. It's like you won't even say it out loud because your limitations immediately, I'm not saying you, but
Mhm.
anybody who is saying, oh, what if I can't afford it? And if you're not allowing yourself to want it, then absolutely you're right. You're not going to be able to. 100%. I can say that. However, and that's why I'm at a point where I will just say it out loud and see what happens because I've said that out loud before. And literally the person next to me was like, oh, I actually got an intern. I'll send you the link. You can sign up for it and you can get an intern. And I'm like, oh, perfect. Or when I've needed like a mother's helper and all of a sudden I figured out a trade with a friend who's also a single mom. And now there's that. So it's like, yeah, you can whine about how you don't have support and you don't have the resources to get any support, or you could just say out loud exactly what kind of support you need and trust that it will come in whatever way. And you don't have to control how it's going to come. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if I can't go out to like some website and hire someone from there and pay them $20 an hour, I can't get support. It's like that is the most limited way of thinking. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You got to open your mind to the possibilities and just say what you want unapologetically and like literally watch. Watch.
When it comes to that part of truly, experimenting as a manifester and disproving or proving the system correct, which is what the whole thing is about. It's like go out, do your experiment, see what happens. Don't trust anybody, trust yourself. And when you finally allow yourself to, like what you said, look beyond that fragment of this is how it needs to be done, but being able then to open the possibilities to that it might come in a different way than what I think. That's where the magic fucking happens. And just a really quick personal story on this. I just created a conference earlier this year and I spent a year and a half to put it all together. Like I gave myself a lot of time because I know myself well enough that I know that I can go into these self-sabotaging moments. I know that it's going to take me a moment to get out of that. And it's getting quicker and quicker for each time. But when I would fall into that despair of, oh my God, not enough tickets have been sold, I'm going to have to pay to do this, and la, 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 la. I mean, I would go into that spiral and I would be like, okay, I'm going to watch myself go into the spiral. How does this actually feel? Oh, we have a visitor.
Okay. Can you bring it to me? Ask him to bring it to me. Okay. Sorry. I have them listening to a story and it stopped playing. So
Okay,
I
that's
need to
not
just
good.
fix it really quick. She's going to bring it to me. They luckily, they just love listening to, and also, like, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but being a manifestor mother, like, you really have to, let me see, honey. Let me see it. Oh, how'd that happen? Okay, here you go, honey. Here, come here. Go ahead. You have to shut the door. It's like I have had to just teach them from, toddlerhood that, like, I remember that when my son was a toddler, I would have to work out, and like I would be holding him and doing my squats, or I would find a way. I mean, I have a defined heart, of course, but so I would find a way, but I'm like, I've always shown them that my stuff's important too. And I swear that's why it's made this whole thing a little bit easier, because I can get them started on something, and they're generators. They'll get into it. They'll get like really immersed in it, and they're cool. Anyway, I'm sorry. You were talking about the spiral
Yes.
of when the tickets are not selling fast enough. I totally get that. But yeah, keep going.
Yes. And just being able, I think, before human design, I was into mindfulness and coaching. I've been doing that for over a decade. And so that really helped me understand that whole deconditioning process that human design wants us to go through, where it's like, okay, you need to observe yourself, you need to become aware, you need to really see what's going on and notice where you're sabotaging yourself, notice where you're fucking it up just because you're used to that, because that's what you've been conditioned to do. And when I could let go, I would notice, okay, I'm spiraling. I'm going to allow myself to spiral. We're going to spiral today. That's what we're going to do today. Great. Awesome. Let's see what this brings you. What is this going to give you? Nothing but pain and suffering and anxiety. And then being able to then be like, okay, but it's okay. You spiraled that day. It's fine. You've given yourself time to do this. And now, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go from here? And noticing that the moment I would let go of the spiral and just be like, okay, what's going to happen from here? We'll see. I don't know. I want to have 20 tickets sold by December. That would be amazing. We're only in October, Jessica. Chill, you know? And then 3 tickets would be sold the next week, and then more, and then more, and then more. And then at the end, we ended up at the number of 44 people. I said I wanted 40 people at my first conference. And here we go. And this is the process we have to learn us to go through. And I think also, especially as emotional manifestors, dipping into those lows, going into those highs, and allowing ourselves to feel it all with no shame, no guilt, no blame, but knowing that this is not, I mean, everything is always working out for my higher good.
I mean, take it a step further and anticipate what comes after the low. Because for me, at least, when like my lows are so low, right? And they're very, they're spikes, but, and typically it's like, it's hormonal, it's correlated to my hormones too.
Mm.
And so I'll have this low, but when I come out of it, there's always something. There's always an insight or a piece of information or a revelation or breakthrough or something like that on the other side of it. And it's like the high that comes after that really low feels so good. So as I'm going into the low recently, I've just been trying to be like, okay, let's go there. If I'm feeling this way, and like you just said, if today is the spiral kind of day, I try not to do the mental spiral as much anymore because it truly is pointless. However, sometimes it is just like part of what's got to happen that day. But I try to just anticipate what's coming after, because where I find the most suffering is in the identification with any point of the wave, even, the high points.
Mhm.
So it's like when I'm starting to spiral and then I start to identify with the spiral and I start to tell myself I'm spiraling because there's something wrong with me, or like, why can't you stop this? Like that whole, like, that makes the spiral so much worse, that dialogue. It's like, instead, I'm like, okay, it's just a part of your process. It's just a part of the cycle. You know what's coming afterwards. Like, just what do you need right now in order to get through the spiral feeling nourished, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes it's not easy to be able to tell in the moment either.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think that's really important, that emotional authority, 50% of the population that actually have this as a mechanical part of themselves. And you and I, with that 1222 of the spikes of high and spikes of fucking despair, it's like, it's just going to happen. And there's nothing to do. There's no reasoning there, but it's so, I mean, at least for me and for a lot of people who I've spoken to, it's difficult. I've been conditioned by my beautiful, lovely, amazing, undefined solar plexus mother to suck it up, buttercup. You know, it was really hard for her to amplify my manifested emotions. That's not an easy trip. And so I have so much grace for her in conditioning me into just, buckle up. It's okay. You don't have to feel this. You can just ignore it or whatever. And then now as an adult going back and just being like, okay, you know what? No, I'm going to feel it all. But it's not going to, it's not there to help me in any way make decisions. It's not here to give me guidance. But like you said, on the other side, that's where the clarity fucking lies, you know? So anyway, that was just a rant on the whole wherever we were and spirals and stuff. But being a manifester and owning your power and being an emotional manifester and allowing the moods without taking action.
Well, and I think too, especially if you're in a line of work where you're doing any, you're in the public eye, or you're doing any kind of writing or art or speaking or singing or anything like that, which of course with the 12 to 22, remember that, yes, this is your individual wave, but think about that wave as in the ocean. We are channeling these emotions that are collective emotions. And I don't know, maybe this is just because I have gate 22 as my north node, but for me, I feel like whenever I am reaching that really low, and especially when I come out and I have that revelation, it's usually something that applies to everybody. It's usually pretty tapped in to what's present right now collectively. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it's like if this low has feelings for me, like, okay, I've just recently had a low and there were a lot of themes around power and feeling powerless. Of course, that's what we've got going on with this full moon, which is happening today. And like all of the transits and these themes are very present. And so remembering too, like sometimes I say my waves are not just for me.
Mm.
That really helps me because it's almost like maybe that's the martyr in the 1-3 profile too. It's like, I'm doing it for you, like I'm feeling it all, but it's not just for me. Like, and I think when I have that almost like feeling my feelings as an act of service,
Mm.
it allows me to like sit in the discomfort, because I do know that there's going to be something that comes out of that that's going to help someone, not just me. So any emotionals listening, if you're having a hard time reframing your emotions or feeling safe to feel and express and all of that, maybe some of those reframes will help you, because they've certainly helped me quite a bit.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've never thought of it like that before, but there's definitely truth in that. The way I've framed it in my mind, with my, especially with the 22-47 combo being my personality, sun and earth, it's like I'm going through these emotions, I'm going through the shitstorm, I'm going through whatever oppression that is created in this Maya, this matrix, this reality. And I'm going to get through it. I'm going to get to the other side, and I'm going to be able then to have more grace for other people because I got to the other side. And so, yeah, the way you framed it with it being the collective part, I'm just like, yeah, it's for other people. It's strengthening me, but it's strengthening me so that I can be strong for other people.
Yeah.
That's
It's like that, almost feels like temperance, that card
Yes.
with the water. Um, yeah, it's like you're filling up and then spilling over. Yeah. But it's hard to fill up when you don't let it really just flow.
Yes.
You got to let it flow.
And speaking of letting it flow, I feel like this is a nice way to like go into this whole part that you mentioned briefly about being a manifester and being a mother. Now, I've said this on a couple of the different podcast episodes with mothers and manifestors, where we have this idiotic narrative that if you're a non-sacral, then maybe you shouldn't have kids, which I just think is detrimental, dangerous, and absolutely not okay. And so anybody who's listening, that's not true, please erase that from your mind. And I would
And more importantly, not just erase it from your mind, but more importantly, do the work to be your own inner authority, so that when you hear something like that and it doesn't resonate, it doesn't permeate, you know?
yes.
Just
Yes.
had to
Yes.
give that little aside.
Yes. No, perfect. Love that. Because I would love to hear more about, you've created so many amazingly interesting, I want to say products just because I don't have a better word for your business. Like one of them being this work weekend, which looks like so much fun. And you're birthing all of these things, you're creating all of these things, and also having these children who you're responsible for becoming adults, and or, first of all, they have to become teenagers and then adults. But how do you feel like, are you able to do this with ease? Because it seems on Instagram like you make it look like there's just this very ease around how you operate. And I would love to hear more about that, and how you've created that, if that's true.
It's interesting because I think honestly, it does happen with ease, but I think that where it hasn't always felt like it's happening with ease, and it doesn't always feel like it's happening with ease. And I think that's a really important distinction to make, because I do think that there are a lot of non-sacrals who are identifying with how hard things are without being able to see that things truly are flowing.
Mm.
For instance, work weekend, the last one, I did not bring my event planner back. I did it myself, since I was planning to use almost all of the same vendors. And I had already talked to them about the dates and all of that. And I knew the venue, I was like rinse and repeat pretty much. Like the first work weekend was just so beautiful and magical and true to my vision that I'm like, let's just do it again and see what kind of experience we create this time. And it just felt it did feel really hard leading up to it. It felt hard, but when I look back on it, I mean, things really did fall into place and they did click exactly as I wanted them to when I would allow it.
Mm.
But there were a lot of moments that I wasn't allowing it, or, I was making things harder, and I also want to say that I don't like to use the term like ADHD because I think it's just like such a silly blanket term. I love to use human design. It's much more efficient to use human design, I think, because you can point out specific things that are going on in the chart that can really like highlight some behavior. And I know for me, I have procrastination. Procrastination is huge for me. I mean, I have an undefined sacral and undefined root. If the energy is not there, and I'm emotional, if I'm not in the mood and the energy's not there, it's just not fucking getting done, you know? And so I think that too, like there were times when I was making things harder for myself because I wasn't just like doing them, or I wasn't just literally calling someone up and being like, can you do this for me? Because I have a lot of resistance. And instead of coaching myself through all this resistance, I would rather just not do it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at actually currently, like holistically in my life is just accepting that I don't want to do certain things and I don't have to do any kind of inner work in order to make myself want to do certain things. That's not what I'm going to do. Instead, I'm just going to not do them, right? I'm just going to like say that I want someone to do them for me. So I think that yes, things do happen with ease because my vision is very clear and I have gotten to a point, and I think I've always been at this point, but it's very strong, where I'm not willing to sacrifice the purity of the vision. Like I'm not willing to water it down for any reason, whether that be someone's opinion or, some perceived limitation or whatever it is. I'm just not willing because I believe that if the vision is this clear and it feels important to me, then it must be. So I think that in the past, I think I've just gotten here gradually. I think with every project, for instance, I created my human design certification program 3 years ago. When I had the vision for that, and I told my business coach at the time, who is a generator, she was like, I think that these people are going to want to learn human design for themselves, not for other people, which it makes sense that I wanted to teach people human design for other people because I'm a manifestor. I don't even know my own chart. And she was thinking, oh, they want it for themselves. And so I did alter my vision according to that feedback. I also made it a certification program when I actually wasn't intending to in the first place. So that's just an example of where, I didn't completely stay true to the vision, which it all is divine. It's all led me here. But I would say that if you have the clear vision, even if it's not sight, but you feel it in your body, what it is and what it should feel like, that's your compass. And you speak it aloud when it is time, when you've fully decided. That's another thing about manifestors that I've noticed is that a lot of manifestors will speak their vision before they've decided. So they speak their vision when there's this sneaky part of them that's looking for permission. The sneaky part of them is looking for some sort of validation or confirmation or permission. So I think you have to get to the point where you've already given yourself the permission. You've already decided that, you are the one and this vision is the one. And at that point, then you speak it aloud. Then you start to get the people on board. Then you start to organize the project. Then you start to take action. But I think it's a very subtle timing issue.
Yeah.
that I think has the potential to really derail your original intention and your original vision. So get to the point where you are fully decided, you've already given yourself permission, and you might need support to, like you said, you're like, I know I'm going to self-sabotage or whatever. If you know that, plan for that, get support for that, whatever. Again, it's like, speak the vision. Here's the vision. Here's where I'm scared. I just had to do that recently for this project I've been working on behind the scenes. Like, had to call my friend and be like, listen, I'm going to go all in. And I know that it's going to get scary. And I know that certain things are really going to dysregulate my system and I'm going to want to hide again. I need you to remind me in those moments of this conversation. Like, it's like, you got to speak, like speak it, speak it, speak it. And I think the more you speak it and the more you work on your own resistance to your own power, everything else just falls into place. Like, you don't have to figure anything out. It will fall into place, truly, 100%. And you can make all the plans, but it probably won't pan out that way.
No. I would love to hear more about, because again, very defined Ajna over here. And so I have like this very one way track thinking, and I kind of tend to lend that to everybody else. And for anybody who's listening, who's like, well, what do you mean by clear vision? Like, what is it? Do you kind of said it now where like you can plan, but the plan might not be the plan. But what does that look like for you when you're like, okay, this is the surge, the urge, the pulse, whatever we want to call it, of this is what's being created through me right now? Do you have like a literal vision, end goal, know exactly what it's going to look like? Or is there just like more of a, I don't know where this is going, but I just know I'm going to go this way? Does that make
No,
sense?
it's a clear vision.
Clear vision.
It's fully baked. Yeah. So, and if it's not clear, it might not be the time. So for instance, my latest one, uh, of course, this came after a week and a half of doing absolutely nothing and being pampered and resting and relaxing and releasing the guilt around all of those things. My children just spent time with their father. And so after the first week of doing absolutely nothing, I sat down at my computer. And as I mentioned, I think I mentioned, we're doing a lot of restructuring because I am like, I'm in this phase. It's just time. I've been saying for a while, I want to scale because I want to work less in my business and make more. And I want to figure out how to make my money work for me. And like, I've known for such a long time exactly what to do and how to do it. And I just have had to get myself on board with it. Now I'm on board, right?
Hmm.
So I go to sit down to work on the back end of things as we prepare for all of what's to come. And the number one task for me, I look at it, I open it up, and I'm just completely repulsed by it. And it's like kind of the top of funnel, right? Totally repulsed by it, and I'm just like, nope, this isn't it. So I close my eyes and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing right now?
Mhm.
And, I've been working very intentionally on my own connection with, call it God or universe or source or divine intelligence, but we have a different connection as manifestors. And so I've been intentionally working on that. And so I closed my eyes and I said, what am I supposed to be working on? And I'm not kidding you. I heard, make a quiz. Make a quiz. It's like, a quiz. Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. I'll make a quiz. What kind of quiz? Like, I'm just like, what kind of quiz is this? And it just started dropping in. Like, it just dropped in what the quiz was, what it was about, what the questions looked like. Like, I saw someone on their screen reading the questions. I saw someone receiving the and like the name came to me, and then I opened up Voxer to my business manager, who to her, she's like, oh, this is the project that we're working on, right? So I'm like, okay, just kidding. This is what we're doing now. And I immediately started writing the questions. They were done in less than 2 hours. The next day, I recorded 20 videos. The next day, I started working on like boom, 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 boom. What would take another person 3 weeks or, 6 weeks to do, maybe longer, I did in 3 days
Mhm.
because I had the vision. I didn't go talking to everybody about it, getting everybody's opinion. I didn't go second guessing myself. I didn't start thinking about all the reasons why it wouldn't work or why someone else has already done it or, which I don't think anyone has, but it's just like, I didn't allow myself to go there. I was like, I asked for an answer and I got one and it feels really good. So I'm just going to trust it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to trust it. And I'm just going to I'm not taking my hands off of it, of course, because I am creating it, but it feels like it's coming through me. And I just think that over time, the difference between when you're forcing something because you feel like it's the next thing and when something is flowing through you because it's moving you to the next thing, you know? There's just a very different kind of energy, and you'll know because one feels really good and one doesn't feel as good. One flows easier. If I'm sitting there and I'm like trying to write these questions and they're not flowing and I'm getting frustrated, I know like it's either not the thing or not the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I sit down and it just and I turn on my camera and it's like it's one take and it's done, obviously, like, why am I going to fuck that up with all my limitations and second guesses and other people's opinions? Feels great. So I've just been in my little bubble. I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't been on social media. I've been in my little bubble. I've been creating my little thing. I am going to wait until it is fully ready and there's a little pretty bow on top before I serve it to the world. Because every time that I've served it in pieces before, and I did that with work weekend too. I was like, this is what it is. Here you go. And I think that for me, that feels so much better. So much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I can't wait to see what you are creating. And yeah, I mean, I tend to agree that that flow of, and that's what we always, I mean, what we manifestors really should be grateful of is like when we are in that flow, we get shit done so fast. And there is that need to understand that resistance that is bodily resistance versus the mind coming in and trying to fuck things up, right? There's a very subtle difference between those two. And I would agree. It's so interesting, but when I'm creating my conference, we ebb and flow. And that's also why I gave myself so long of time to get everything done. Because I'm like, I'm going to be on for this amount of time and then I'm going to be off. But then I'm going to be on again and my energy is going to be available for that thing. And it was so funny because there was a point where the speakers that I had already, got in to speak and had already announced and everything, they were just like, is there going to be a conference? I mean, we haven't heard from her in a couple months. Like, I'm just like, dude, you guys know I'm a manifestor. I was just like not there. I was not okay with it. But the vision was always clear of where we're going and what we're doing and allowing myself to have enough time to create that big thing. Like creating something like a conference. It's like, I'm not going to do that in a weekend. That's going to take many weekends to create. But then also knowing that, okay, but the energy's done. It's off. We've done that part that we're supposed to do. Now we're just going to, rest, whatever that looks like for different people, and then go back to it. And I think it's just, yeah, there's this ebb and flow of beauty if we can just allow it when creating something.
Yeah. And it's a real challenge. I mean, I still battle myself with it, because when I'm off, I really am off. And the inner dialogue, the chatter that happens, the mental chatter that happens as a result of looking around me and seeing everyone with consistent, reliable, sustainable energy, when mine is so unpredictable, when it's not there, it's like, but it was just there. Like, come on, you know?
Mhm.
And it's like, I forget, you know, yeah, we get a lot more done in a lot shorter period of time. And then it's meant to last us, you know? And so whether that means, I don't know, I mean, even for me, like that feast or famine cycle too in finances has been the thing. I think if you have an undefined sacral, a lot of undefined sacrals really relate to that because yeah, when the energy is there. And so it's like, okay, when the energy is there, how do you channel it toward the thing and also channel it toward, I mean, for me with my one line, I'm like, how do I channel this toward the foundation as
Mhm.
well? So that every time it gets easier and easier. So part of what we're doing as well is creating this ecosystem for my business where, okay, I've already filmed all of this content. I've already recorded all of this content. Here you go. Here you go. And I have support to help me with scheduling, cutting everything into post, but also we have AI now. Like we have AI is such a beautiful tool, especially for non-sacral. Like let the robot do it for you. Let the robot do the work. And it's like, let's schedule everything out ahead of time. Let's schedule even tasks way out ahead of time. Let me figure out how much support I can receive. Let's see. Let's play a game. How much support can I receive for these things? And it's like every single time I have that surge of energy or I have that surge of resources or whatever, how can I get smarter and smarter and smarter about channeling it in a way that feels really good in the moment and also spills over into setting myself up so that the lows don't actually feel as low anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes, 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 yes. It makes a lot of sense. I think
Yeah.
that's really important lesson for manifestors to take from this podcast of really understanding that setting ourselves up for success is creating a foundation no matter what, if you're a first line or not. It is creating that foundation for, call it quote unquote passive income or whatever it is, but just like really understanding that when you're creating something, it needs to be for the longevity of you. And in that ripple effect, it will impact so many people. And so I would love to hear, you've talked a little bit about, well, we've talked a lot about the entrepreneurial part of this and allowing yourself to do things in a different way. And of course, that fear that can come up when we see these fucking generators going over there and generating the whole time. Like my husband, I'm married to an MG, and it's just like, dude, I get so envious sometimes. I'm just like, how? I cannot, ugh, I'm done. But do you notice, being a manifester and a parent, how you do it differently than the generators? And have you ever gotten like pushback or yeah, talk to me about that a little bit.
Honestly, I think that my aura is such that it does not welcome any pushback and it hasn't for a very long time. Even as a kid, I just like I've just never been available for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so even when I've seen it or like my dad for instance, we we do not agree on a lot of things, and he doesn't understand and I've had to set boundaries, but like I'm cutthroat. This is the way that I'm going to do it. And either you can respect it or we're going to have some boundaries. And then I enforce it. I follow through. And so you teach people how to treat you. And as a manifester, you have to teach people that you're not available for feedback unless you're asking for it explicitly. So I would say that first. What helps is that I moved to Hawaii and had my children there. So I was, almost 6,000 miles away from most people that had known me before parent. And then anyone that I attracted or came into relationship with from that point was pretty like to me. So, there's a huge community out there for mothers who want to do things alternatively. So it was like, I had a home birth. I had my son at home um, with a midwife, and we're vegan, obviously. Like, I am an entrepreneur and all these different things. I mean, I did my children did potty training, which you don't call it that the way that I did it, but I didn't train them to go like in diapers. I never had to deal with potty training a toddler at 3 years old because my kids were far out of diapers by then. Like, there were all these things that I did that a lot of people didn't understand. But when I owned it and I was like, well, this feels right for me, and this is what I've decided, exactly the people that I needed to meet appeared.
Mm.
So it was like I had a little community of people around me that, first of all, either were doing things similarly or were at a point in their consciousness where me doing things differently didn't trigger them or agitate them in any way. So it's not something that I have felt like I've needed to navigate. That said, I think that in business, it's a whole different story. With motherhood, I'm extremely confident in whatever I feel intuitively is correct. With my business, it's taken me a lot more uh, struggle to get to that point.
Mm.
It's taken me learning the hard way that no one truly can know how I want to move. No one can truly know my vision. No one can truly know, like, fill in the blank better than me.
Mm.
And what I am going to create and what I am going to initiate into the world, there is not a template for, right? There is not, I don't know. I've had to learn the hard way how to not be available for influence and feedback from social media, mostly in business. And so putting up way better boundaries with that, like realizing that social media is designed to influence you. That is the whole entire point. And yes, social media will penetrate the fuck out of your aura. So it's like, you as a manifester, if decide what phase that you are in. If you are in a phase where you are clarifying your vision, or you have been in a rest phase and you're ready to receive a new vision, or you're ready to receive, a new surge of energy, I would unplug from social media as much as possible, because you don't know how much your vision is actually clouded by everything that you are seeing all day, every day, until you give yourself a break, you know? So I would definitely unplug. And for me, some of the most helpful business conversations that I have had in the last year and a half to 2 years have been in real life, in real brick and mortar businesses with real people in all different kinds of industries. It's really grounded my own work in new ways, because I can see I help, how my work can help real fucking people in real life do real things, because I think sometimes we can get so caught up in the ethers. So I think a lot of manifestors can get caught up in the ethers and not even realize how much they're being influenced. And if that's you, like, maybe just take a little break and see what happens, see what comes through, because when you can do that and then make the decision. And I know you and I both have defined ajnas. So, like, repetition to change those beliefs. It takes time, it takes repetition, and it takes real fortitude to change the way that you think about something or change the way that you see something. So you have to be able to see yourself as a person who has a very unique vision and mission, and it's meant for you and it's meant for the world. And you have to be so strong in your resolve not to allow anyone to make you feel less than, so that you have to explain yourself in some way. It's just a waste of energy. So I don't know. I don't know if I am relatable in that, but that's just, I don't know. I just try to make myself not available for it.
Yeah, I think that's, being unapologetic about your parenting style and that kind of flowing now into your entrepreneurial style is what I'm hearing. And I think it's just so gorgeous to see and hear. And I'm feeling so inspired just from listening to you. And what you say about social media, I think, I'm just like bone to the bone honesty here. It's like, yeah, that shit can fuck you up. Afraid of the opinions of people, afraid of what they're going to say and who's not going to like this or who's going to, talk shit about me behind my back now because I did this thing. Or it's fucking high school. It's like we need to, like, just like you said, step away from that shit. Take your lunch somewhere else. Go sit on the bleachers.
Until you can step back with feeling more grounded, and curating a virtual environment that supports where you're going, right? So I have unfollowed most accounts. I think I'm following 500, but those 500 are like, it's content that really inspires me. It's content that really makes me think. It's content that is very positive. It's content from individuals who are at a level of awareness and consciousness where there isn't an underlying air of guilt, shame, manipulation, or scarcity, or, all of that I don't want that unsolicited.
Yeah.
If I want to go out and see where it's happening in the world, I will do that. But I don't want to come on here and just be bombarded by a bunch of crap I have no control over. So I have curated an environment where my social media nourishes me. If I decide like, oh, I'm going to take an hour and just mindlessly scroll, I'm mindlessly scrolling, but I'm scrolling like content that makes me feel good and like makes me think and teaches me something. And usually it's about astrology, or I watch a lot of dance videos because I love dance, or I watch, singing and things that uplift me. So, I think whatever relationship you decide to have with social media, you can have.
Yeah.
But it might require different behavior and different perspective so that you can have that relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes. So much. Saw that you have a visitor.
Yeah. Honey, what's up? Yes. Matthew can too. Will you shut the door? Thank you. They're doing great. I'm impressed.
Yes, indeed. Um, yeah, I feel like this is a really nice place to start rounding off the conversation though. And what you said there about curating your experience on social media, I think that's so important. Me too. I cut out a lot of people for a moment and just was like, no, I'm only going to do, open head also. I don't want all of that inspiration that's going to confuse me, that's going to create doubt, that's going to create all of these pressure to do or pressure to think in a certain way. And so it's like, yeah, the people that are inspiring and dance and music. I mean, 1222 people, it sounds like, we have the same feed going on over here.
Totally. Yeah. And I think too, like take that as a microcosm for the macrocosm of your life. Like curate your environment. You have way more power over it than a lot of us even realize, right? I'm sure there are areas where I'm still like allowing things into my field that don't actually resonate with me or that I don't actually like. And I don't think there's any real destination because we're always evolving. And so that's always going to require new limits or new boundaries or new ways of relating or new ways of curating an environment, because what you need now is different from what you're going to need in a year. So I think, And a lot of how I teach human design as well is using it to using everyone's design to teach you something about yourself. So, like, whenever I talk about reflectors, for instance, this is what I talk about. Reflectors teach us this. They teach us how important it is to really curate an environment that helps us to, be a version of ourselves that we like, that delights us, you know? And when we don't curate that environment, whether it's on social media or in our real lives, when we don't curate an environment that allows us to feel like most like ourselves, like a version of ourselves that we actually enjoy, like something obviously needs to change, and we have the power to change that. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, that's a beautiful place to end this conversation. But before we do, I want to ask, is there anything that you feel like you would like to add to this conversation, or something that you feel like you didn't get to say before we do end this?
No, just that, especially for the manifestors listening, I'm sure it's mostly manifestors. And I definitely don't have it all figured out. Don't get me wrong, but I do see where I'm looking back on the last few years of ways that I really did not see my power, or I did not use it, or I didn't use it to my own benefit. Or maybe I would use my power to help other people that maybe didn't even really care that much about me, And I think that I see that a lot. I see a lot of manifestors kind of not fully owning their power and knowing that using it for yourself is a service. So yeah, but other than that, no, this has been such a lovely conversation. I'm so happy to have shared it with you.
Likewise, I am so excited to be able to share this with the world. And for anybody who is listening, how can they find you and how can they work with you? What services do you have right now, except the whole secret project happening in the background?
Yeah. Well, I think by the time this goes live, it won't be so secret anymore. But yeah, you can always go to Instagram. I'll have all of my updated offerings there on Instagram. I also have a YouTube. I have a podcast. It's called Under the Surface. So you can find me in all of those places. I have a training program for human design in case you want to, if you're a coach or a healer, or you work with people in some capacity and you want to embody your own design in a more grounded, holistic way, and also learn how to do that for your clients. It's called Embodied by Design. That's always available. But otherwise, it just depends on the day, what I'm offering, really, whatever I'm in the mood for.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful journey. Yeah, I really appreciated your voice on this podcast.
Thank you so much. And thanks for all the listeners for being here.